we will have Valencia Clement, who is an artist, writer, researcher, doctoral student here at ASU in the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, studying educational policy and evaluation. She's a double alumni of Peabody College at Vanderbilt University, where she studied human and organizational development and higher education. She began to explore the intersections of ethnic, sexual, intellectual, and religious identities around high school. She is a doctoral student studying womanist pedagogies for multiple marginalized populations in non-traditional spaces, especially as it relates to religious and spiritual education, art, and acculturation. Her research interests are in transformative social pedagogy, womanist social change theory, blues aesthetics, and poetic translation. Her academic guides include James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, and Gloria Anzaldúa. She leverages their work and philosophies to introduce inclusive scholarship based in liberation, spirituality, and aesthetics. She's the author of 5 books, and all of her books use poetic translation to articulate the emergence of her womanist consciousness. She is a 2021 Shippers Race Relations Scholar and has just been recognized for her justice, equity, and diversity work here at Arizona State University. She is the Haitian American from Queens, New York. And today she will be presenting on how creativity carried me through, combating hegemony with the power of radical possibility. So we are going to move right on to Valencia Clement. And Val, are you on? Yep. So I will go ahead and turn it right on over to you.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Valencia and I'm a second-year PhD student at Mary Lou Fulton College. Thank you, Jamal, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you, Mimi, for your presentation. I really appreciate how we're bringing in new creative methods into the academy as we are kind of paving a path of a cultural revolution. And so kind of on the same note, I want to talk to you guys about how creativity carried me through. And this presentation is going to be more of a performance. I'm going to read some poems to you and talk to you about what they mean to me, how they've helped me throughout this journey. And if there's time at the end, I would love to open it up to any comments or questions or anything like that. But mostly I just want you to kind of sit back, relax, and like if anything stands out to you, just hold on to it. So here we go. Creativity. Why creativity? It's accessible. As far as poetry, it's musical, which I love music and moving my body. It leverages the oral tradition, which is sacred in the African-American community and African diaspora. Colloquial translations of theory. We're in the ivory tower, but that doesn't mean that our knowledge has to stay there. So by putting it in poetry, it's like, this is more accessible to even kids. Sharing Haitian culture. As you'll see, each of my books are titled with Haitian Creole words as a way to share pieces of my culture with whoever wants to join me on this journey. Documenting spiritual development, because sometimes the journey through the academy can feel like spiritual warfare. And so learning how to resist, learning how to cope, learning how to find peace throughout that is very important. And it's something that I've really wanted to document with my books. And lastly, womanist social change theory is my jam. I love it. And these books kind of epitomize womanist sass and talk back. So when there are these dominant theories that exist that tell me who I am, I reach into my pen and I tell the world who I am with these books. And so that's kind of why I chose this path. That's how creativity carries me through poetry in all these many ways. So here we go. Palais. So this is my first book. It came out on January 2nd, 2019, which is Ancestors Day in Haiti. The first is actually our Independence Day. We were an independent first Black free nation in the Western Hemisphere on January 1st, 1804. So I love to share that part of my culture with the dates that I released the books on. And so this book, the title is Palais, Pa Aller. Palais means speak in Haitian Creole. Pa Aller means don't leave. So in English, it's speak, don't leave. And so the first poem comes from a conversation with my great grandmother. When I'd come home from college, I hadn't been home for a while, and she had this message for me. Madame lays her brown wrinkled hand in mine. She grips me tightly as she guides me to a seat. 20 years ago, she carried me when I could barely walk. Now she's 80 years old and I tower over her shrunken frame. Once seated, she looks at me intently. Her eyes tell a story of a world I've never known, of fleeing her homeland, of third world poverty, of lawless lands. As the years went by before her eyes, she watched her great nation meet its demise. The times have been hard and they've taken their toll, yet she still believes that the pain and the heartbreak have made her wise. After what seems like an immeasurable silence, the floodgates burst and words roll off her lips like waterfalls from the bassin bleu. She races against time to impart these final words to the first child she's guided through life. Parlez, she says, your power is in your tongue. You are powerless if you don't speak. Parlez, if you quietly let life go by, the world will become an unfamiliar place. Parlez, I've overcome geography, a foreign tongue, and poverty for you to use your voice. Parlez, for when I die, my legacy lives on in your words. Parlez, she says one final time, gripping my hands, forever. And so that's the first piece in my first book, kind of introducing me and my intentions to the world. My next book was a little bit different. It's called Songer, Take Your Medicine, Tell Your Truth. You might remember that epitaph, Take Your Medicine, Tell Your Truth, from the Red Table Talk. And what this book was, it was an epistolary collection of poetry. So it's organized by date. As you can see, the title here is January 17th, 2019 at 3:34 a.m. And so what I did with this book is, instead of giving each poem a title, I titled it with the time. And the reason why time was so important for this is because this book was about managing a chronic illness, while managing gender dysphoria, while dealing with like reproductive health and trying to ascertain like, where am I gonna get help? If I'm not getting it from the world, I hope to get it from the earth. And so the book is cut into 5 sections, which are the quintessential elements: fire, air, earth, water, and of course, spirit, which is an important element that we often forget. And so this poem is organized, this book is organized by times also to illustrate chronic illness. Oftentimes we don't think about chronic illness with time in mind and the fact that it progresses over time. So I wanted to illustrate the different times where people didn't see me, but this chronic illness was eating me alive. And what that meant, because I was dealing with adenomyosis, which is an issue where you have holes in your uterine wall and creates severe pain. And so it was very hard for me because I was experiencing figuring out my gender and feeling they, feeling sometimes not so she, and then having so much trauma tied to this part of me that's supposed to be natural was very complex. And so this book really kind of explores that in a way that also explores medical racism, the fact that Black patients often don't get the pain care they need, and what that actually looks like on a human level, not like on a CDC graph. So here is January 17th, 2019 at 3:34 a.m. I leave the doctor's office with hope extinguished and yet another cross to bear. I came in for assistance or a decision, but now I've got an assignment in hand and I'm heading into darkness with no night vision, trying to avoid fatal collision. Every time I ask for help, it's never what I envision. I tell my doctor I'm passing out, and she tells me all the ways I need to change things for people, change things that have existed for me, before me, for Blacks, for queers, for women, for immigrants, for the proletariat, for the third world, for survivors. I reached out to an MD once again, only to be told I'm asking for too much, that there's no magic pill, but I didn't come here for magic, I'm here for treatment, and doctors think I'm being dramatic. I hemorrhage dollars and dignities for dudes with dick to tell me what they can't fix or to blame politics. And in my mind, I wonder, what about this? What about me and this pain? Will I ever be free from waking up on the cold floor, eyes fluttering open to the ceiling in the dark? So many qualified doctors let me down and miss the mark. I go to these appointments and try to maintain compliance, but it's hard to hear the professional pep talk when I came here for science. So this is my third book. I actually dropped this in the middle of my first year of my PhD program. It was a really hard lesson to learn, so I wanted to document it in books. Coming to Arizona, this place has a lot of history. The whole country does, but like we can see the indigenous history very clearly here. And so I was really thinking about what it means to decolonize, what it means to be post-colonial. What do these terms mean in an institution that claims that diversity and inclusion are their most important priorities, where we count ourselves by who we include and not by who we exclude? Those are things that played in my mind constantly as I thought about this process of becoming a professor, of becoming an academic. This professionalization process helped me understand a lot about imperial racism. And imperial racism has to do with being in the empire. And it's the idea that there are these imperial signifiers that kind of let people know that we have certain privileges. So the ability to speak English, for example, or to translate things into English is one of those examples. And so what it does, it adds more complexity to the ideas of how we understand privilege in a lot more intersectional ways. And so it allowed me to really think about what it means to be at an American university, pursuing decolonial methods, decolonial scholarship, studying the works of Gloria Anzaldúa, studying the works of folks in Haiti. What does that mean with me being situated as a first generation scholar entering a field that is a colonizing force, and has been and continues to be? And so this poem is called How the Savage Gave Its Name. Here it is. They make us say please, say trust their expertise, but they bring disease. They make decrees. They say pray on your knees and we'll set you free. Just get degrees so you can unlearn your savagery. I study in your libraries, finding stories to the contrary. The American dream is just profanity if it constantly demands my humanity. Fanon said it also costs sanity. The colonized choked down brutality, colonizer mindset planted inorganically, had the oppressed acting erratically. Schools deliver colonizing pedagogy. It has changed the playing fields drastically. Hegemony means colonizers can have brown skin. Just because they look like you, don't make them kin. If they make us say please, pass on their social disease, because it happened to me, hegemony is guaranteed. How the Savage Gave Its Name. And so I'm playing around with the idea of savage and like Ami Césaire, and how he talks about a lot of time colonizers thought that the people that they were helping were savages. But really, he in his book, Discourse on Colonialism, he talks about how by participating in such evil, it creates a transformation of the colonizer into a savage by being able to participate in these brute acts. And so we're just gonna keep on moving along. The next book is called Chant d'Espérance, The Journey to Justice. And so Chant d'Espérance means songs of hope. When I was growing up in Haitian churches, we always had a book. It was called Chant d'Espérance. It was in French. And one thing that always stuck with me was we all speak Creole in this church. Why is this biblical book that's so sacred in French, in the white man's tongue? Why is that? And so this book kind of unpacks that linguistic sovereignty while thinking about what does it mean to journey to justice. I was taking a class on theoretical perspective on Utopia, shout out to HQ. And it really gave me a lot of different texts to wrestle with when thinking about social justice in the realm of utopian longing. And so this poem is kind of like a question of hope. And the poem is called Can Freedom Be Free? Can freedom be free? Why is free in freedom? What's the reason? When freedom has been bought with rape, war, and plots, with essential workers, state-sanctioned murders on the backs of people paying taxes, let's ask the masses, can freedom be free? Does freedom include me? If I have no money, if I don't have degrees from the Ivy League, if I can't write or read, or have contested citizenry, or live outside the gender binary, does it still include me? Why is freedom as I know it an oxymoron? We idolize it, though it's already foregone. We lusted after a meeting and forgot what fighting for freedom was actually about. Does my freedom depend on others being in bondage? Does my freedom happen only if I go to college? If I swallow supremacy, I'll be a blood child, defiled and confined. If I rebel, likely exiled. Freedom sounds like exactly what it's not. How is our freedom secured by those who fought in wars far away where we became an enemy? Were we freer because we had better weaponry? Are we free because we install dictators claiming to want democracy but crushing crusaders? Are we free because we can cast a vote between two candidates that I would never promote? Are we free when the legacy of the United States is marred by what we did to them? What is the first world when we're just dressed up for pretend? It took the world getting sick to finally think about what curdles the souls of rebels, takes them down a few levels, distancing them from irony. Emotional consultation becomes anxiety. Is freedom a cage? Is it knowing from where you came? Is it knowing the truth? Is it investing in our youth? In a white supremacist capitalist system filled with contradictions, can freedom be free? So the next book is from my most recent book. It came out earlier this month. It's called Suntime. It's a testament to epistemic justice. Suntime means senses or sentiment. So it's thinking about our bodies and how our bodies are honestly the first conduit to knowledge. Oftentimes research tells us, hey, your body biases you. But bias is not the most important thing, you know, like what we need to do is understand that sometimes our unique positionalities and our ideas, our identities, they actually are a gift that allow us to see things in new ways that haven't been seen before. So oftentimes objectivity is a cloak over ideas that are white supremacists. We've seen a lot of research that's been objective that have been used to justify slavery, discrimination, lots of things. And so what does it mean to look at our bodies? What does it mean to look at our histories and take all of these different lessons that we've had on this journey and consider them tools and assets versus liabilities? That's what this piece is about. I'm not saying be unethical. I'm just saying your body is not a liability. You have to be responsible with how you use it in research, but it can also be something that connects you into your passions and connects you to communities. And that's important. That's the human part of it. So this last poem is called I Too, a New Anthem. It's inspired by Langston Hughes' I Too. And so here it goes. I too sing America with queer Black boldness. I sing American sorrow as I serve the homeless. I sing my blues to heal Black and purple bruises and study the systems American hegemony reproduces. I sang to America. Now I sing to the movement. I can't sing to a country that considers me a mutant. I sang to this country because my family fought hard to get here. We arrived in this country for asylum and were promptly told to disappear. Mom and dad left their homelands. Grandpa set sail to the land of free. I sing songs to Haiti and the divided states of America living in me. They told us we brought our criminal families and had anchor babies. They mocked us, took our uteruses, and told us we brought disease. Do you know what it's like to be a hyphenated American, to be told memory loss and assimilation are the only medicine for losing your home to the empire and being rejected at the promised land, to see how xenophobia left folks cringing at our outstretched hands? White pilgrims left Europe for a better life, and we celebrate it. They settled without papers, but left lands devastated. We arrived and learned the US planted the seeds of our departure, stealing elections and policing the world, a patronizing monster. We know police brutality is a deadly issue in the United States. Imagine what officers do overseas while we debate and translate. We lost our chance at #1 when we chose aggression over peace. We lead the world in COVID and chaos. We drop waste into the seas. I write songs to propel me to the next hopeful day. My fist is lifted. I am not your prey, and you are not great. I march on, but victory will take more steps than mine. I wonder whose lives matter as this country crosses ethical lines. The church tells us to wait and pray. The government says it's in our heads. Either way, I've been taught faith without works is dead. I have sung the song of America and naively pledged its pledges. Now I sing songs for the forgotten people and places that I deem precious. Peoples whose homes have been turned into war zones, people who fear sunny days because of tax-funded drones. I used to think singing for America was singing for liberation. Now I look to activists and civil leaders for my inspiration. I sang to America, now I sing to the movement. I can't sing to a country that considers me a mutant. Thank you.
Woo! 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 Okay. Clap, 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 clap. Yes. We are going to move into Q&A for Val, and I am going to actually exercise some of my positionality here and ask the first question, because you covered so much in a very short amount of time. You went through your books. I mean, there was things about internationalism, woman, gender, sexuality. You know, you really turned pain into power, and you used it, and you did that through artistry. And so I'm just wondering, for someone who isn't as connected to the creativity as you, how would you negotiate, or what would you advise them on how to fall in love with their own creativity so that they could use creativity to get through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that oftentimes we tie our creativity to like productivity and capitalism, and obviously it makes it not as fun. It makes you think about how good or bad you are. But like, if I was to show you the first stuff that I was writing when I first started writing, you'd be like, this is garbage. But it's just about continuing anyways. It was a way for me to take that pain and practice getting it out and being like, what does this say to me that I want to come back and see when I'm struggling through something? And that's what kind of was the process. It wasn't always, sometimes I wrote these poems and I wasn't writing it down. I was longboarding through the street. It felt good, it felt free, and it allowed these ideas to flow. So it's a lot about your body and your intuition and feeling things out. So like, when you feel the most free, try to do something that makes you happy. And that might lead you to creating a dance, a poem, a video. It might lead you to going outside or just taking a walk and just looking at the world a whole different way. But it's always about like listening to your body and not thinking about what are other people going to think? Would other people buy it? Can I sell it? Can I do all these things that like the Academy teaches us to package and capitalize and send it off and do it again. And we kind of lose sight of what those feelings are in the process that move us. And like, that's what you want to experience. Creativity isn't about like dropping a book, you know, it's really about feeling inside of your body that you were able to express something and let it go in a way that doesn't leave you emotionally or like mentally constipated. That's what it's like when you don't get things out and you have to get them out. So getting things out is key. It doesn't matter what it comes out as. Just get it out, then revise.
Love that redefinition of creativity. Beautiful. Thank you. Teo, did you have a question?
No, I'm just overwhelmed. It's amazing.
Okay. Please, audience members, if you have any questions for Val, I invite you to unmute and ask. So I'm gonna ask another question then. I can still think. I'm just really wondering, since you really talked about process, you know, turning your pain into to the power through the process, right? I just think that that is absolutely amazing. Um, I I do wonder. Um, I guess the best way I can ask this question is like, did you embrace the schizophrenia of creativity, or is there a way in which you find focus in order to, I mean, because you're a PhD student like many of us, and you're on your fifth book, like some of us trying to just get through a final paper. So I'm just wondering if like how that, just the vastness of information as well as the things that you would like to express kind of play in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually, so the process, it's kind of like the schizophrenia. Like I sometimes I record, if I have a line that comes across my mind and I'm driving, I'll record it on my phone. If I am like in the middle of something and I'm like, oh, like that sounds like what I want to hear, I will also write it down. Sometimes if I don't know where I'm quite going, I will just write down the idea and come back to it. But I think of it a lot as like trying to embody blues aesthetics. So thinking about like the African American tradition of blues and what that meant. So like the blues emerged as like Black people have been in America for quite a few generations. So it was almost like Black people coming out as African American to the world, like this new hyphenated identity. And so thinking about that tradition in the Black community, in all of my work, I'm always like having that in mind. Like I cannot go through this pain for nothing. So I'm about to make it, I'm have to make it beautiful. I have to transmute it, because otherwise like I can't rationalize or make sense of like pain for no reason existentially. I'll get real, spirally if I do that. And so a lot of it is just, is there an idea that I'm thinking about? And I'll wrestle with it for about 4 months. And if I write every day, like I'll have about a book after that time if I cut a couple of poems. So just like keeping that discipline of trying to write whenever something just like, okay, someone said this, I'm gonna write this down. Like even watching Lil Nas X's music video, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to tackle this one. So just like writing something down, after the conference, I'll have time to like think about what that means and expand on it and make those connections to other places. But it's really a meditation, and just like whenever you have a line, you're like, catch it real quick, write it down, and just like come back to it, because you can put them all together and it'll build to something that you weren't expecting. And it's honestly surprisingly cohesive as well.
I now have a question. So it really is, okay, we've all, I'm an MBA student, but I got my PhD many years ago, wrote a thesis, a dissertation. Then I did my MPH, wrote a whatever thesis. But I absolutely hate writing. Okay. I basically cry myself through my class projects, even the MBA project, are like 3 pages. Mm-hmm. And I think about how, like, there are things like I want to publish like my master's thesis. I'm like, why? And I think about professors that write and write. I'm like, in industry, I get 3 times more money than any professor, and I don't have to write that much. Okay. But I want to write, I do want to write for health disparities. I want to write things that I think of value, the work that I did, that I want to disseminate it, because it's about us. It's like stem cell research on ethnically diverse populations. But I find it very, very hard to be motivated to do things that, okay, it's not going to give me a degree, right? So I have no reason to do it. How do you find that in you? Do you love to write?
Yeah, I really love to write. And so for me, it's also about finding what I like to write about and then engaging it in a way that makes it more interesting for me. So right now, Jamal, Mimi, and I are all in this performance ethnography class. And it's like taking these ideas that we learn in research and turning it into a performance. That like, that's way more fun. Like I had to write a 30-page paper and I wrote it, but like, this is way more fun, because it's not just about being on a page, which like culturally, that doesn't resonate with the people that I know, you know, like they're like, I don't know what your posts say. I don't know what this says. And I'm like, okay. So like, I think that's why poetry kind of is my jam, and in a way to translate and help me understand the theories, because it's musical, it's fun to write. So like finding things that you, even if it's like a haiku or a play or something that you say out loud, just finding what you like to write and what you don't like to write. And if you don't like to write at all, what you dislike the least. And then try to like spend time developing things that are engaging, that you can include other people and collaborate on. So it's been really fun that I didn't have to perform all of the poems for my piece by myself, but to get people involved and be like, what do you think of this? Or how can we incorporate your voice into it? And that makes it less about the writing. The writing just happens then, and it's more about this connection that you're creating. So I try to focus less on the mechanics of it and like what kind of connections am I creating as a result of this, because those are fulfilling in the end.
That's excellent. Let's touch base later on.
Absolutely.
Great job.
That is amazing. Are there any other questions? Because I have one more question for you, if no one else does, right? I don't want to take up space, and we only have a few minutes.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. That is Professor Yisa Bakunle.
Go ahead.
So good afternoon all, and thank you for accepting me on this platform. I would like to thank all the speakers. They've kept me fully awake since morning, and that's not an easy task to do for somebody trying to clock 80 years very soon. Now, the last speaker, Valencia Clement, she touched on so many topics, one of which was medical. She alluded to the fact that a number of times she would go to see the doctor, the MD, and she would come out almost more bewildered than when she went in. They would have a panel of tests to do and to interpret. And yet, it appears they didn't get to the bottom of her problem, particularly when it comes to do with body identity, sexualism, that kind of thing. Now, I wanted your opinion whether you think the way technology is influencing medical practice is going to make matters worse in the future. When I was training and when I train students, I try to emphasize physical communication and talking and listening intently to patients' complaints rather than ordering for a battery of tests. Now, the way technology is influencing medical practice now, we are going to telemedicine, we are going to artificial intelligence. You can actually be diagnosed and treated without ever seeing a human being as a doctor. And I'm a little bit very uncomfortable about that. So I wanted to know what your opinions are in view of your experience, which you have expressed so clearly in your poems.
Yes, thank you, sir. I really appreciate your question. And I've been thinking about it a lot. At first, when I was hearing about telemedicine, I thought, great, like more people have access, like this will be great. But then I started realizing more people have access and they will never have been seen. Like I have really severe allergies. So I had an ear infection and someone gave me like a whole bunch of amoxicillin, a whole bunch of steroids. They never even looked at my ear, you know, like to know like if that was what I needed. And when I picked up the antibiotics, I was like, you know, I'm going to get like some kind of MRSA someday because, you know, they didn't even know if I have an infection. They're giving me these antibiotics. That's exactly how we're creating you know, infections that are resistant to antibiotics. And so it's like with this, I think it will end up perpetuating more harm. I found that when I went to doctors, they weren't really willing to listen. And when I was saying like I was in pain, they were like, so are you drug seeking? Are you seeking pain relief? And it's like, yes, I'm in extreme pain. When I'm not in extreme pain, I will not need these medications. But until we can get to the bottom of it, sending me home to pass out at home is not really like safe under any mechanism. And would that be what you would want for your child? And when you go through that for so long and people are like, oh, you sound like you're depressed. Like, no, I'm not depressed. I'm in pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it makes it hard for people to like understand the human dimension, like, or to feel that empathy when it's through a screen. Because, and even when they're right in your face, sometimes they don't understand that you're in pain and like how to help relieve or support that pain. Even when you tell them like, I'm burning my stomach through with the naproxen and that ibuprofen isn't working, or I'm going through more than the regular dose, and it's not because I'm a drug user, it's because like I'm not doing well right now and I really need your help. And I've paid you my copayment. I can't get it back. So what do you do with that? And so I think the medical system needs a revolutionizing as it relates to insurance, as it relates to like finding out the cost of your treatment, especially access, making sure that folks are able to get quality care from people who are not so burnt out that they want to like hear what you have to say. Because she was like, oh yeah, a lot of people experience this. You're a smart girl. You should go home and research how you can make this better for everyone. And I'm like, I already have to take 5 days out of the month off because I can't do anything. So thank you for the more work and no relief. And so just like some kind of empathy. I don't think technology is going to help with that. I think it's really going to take sitting down with medical doctors and like having them think about what it means to actively listen, what it means to like ask questions to confirm that they understand what the patient is saying, and then like following up to make sure that that treatment is adequate and helps the patient. So I think I actually send this book to doctors, like, because I'm like, you guys should know what it's like when I'm up at 3 a.m, not just when I'm in your office at 1 p.m. or 8 a.m. You guys should know that I'm up at night, I'm on the floor, and this is the reality when you send me home with nothing. And that's not increasing the care.
Thank you very much for that answer.
Thank you so much for asking the question, sir.
Okay. Wow, thank you ever so much. I will echo what was said in the chat, being brilliant, and thank you for your presentation. I also want to thank Miriam and Miranda and everyone for speaking today. It was an absolutely incredible, informative, transformative day that I really hope that more people get to engage with tomorrow.